All right. We'll start off with a quote. The spiritual path is not a solo endeavor. In fact, the very notion of a self who is trying to free themselves is a delusion. We are in it together, and the company of spiritual friends helps us realize our interconnectedness. So today we're going to start with Releasing Stress Part 2. And we'll start by lighting our candle. If anyone has a candle, you can light your candle now. If you don't have a candle and you want to get a candle, you can do that. Or if you want to have something that symbolizes something that you're holding, the container for grief. And just a reminder that this candle light is moving the air around it. And eventually those ripples of air are reaching out and we're touching each other through those ripples of light. This container of grief is becoming larger and it's worldwide. It's all the way from the United States, of the East Coast, at least of the United States of America, and the UK and Turkey, and we're spreading these vibrations out. And within that container, we're allowing for anybody a safe space to put their grief. We don't have to hold the grief. We're just creating a container, a safe place to put it. All right. Yeah. So just to give you a little what we're going to do today, we're going to start with the tuning in, and Richard is going to do the tuning in today. Real treat. And then we'll check in. We'll break out into small breakouts, rooms of 2 people or 3 people, and talk about how this past week has been. And then we'll go over today's material. And we already have figured out some partners, so we can go through that as we move through this session today. And then if we have time, we'll have some time to talk, Q&A, and then always we'll end with love. Always, always start with love, love all through, and end with love. So I'm going to stop the share, and Richard, would you tune us in? And you might want to unmute.
Okay, folks, let's just settle in to whatever we're sitting on, whatever we're resting on. Okay? Let's make sure that we're comfortable first. Now, so just feeling the support of the seat beneath you. And let's close our eyes. Just close those eyes. So just being aware of your breath. So just a simple awareness. Whatever else, whatever other experiences, sensations of the body, emotions, thoughts, just allow them to just pass on by like a piece of wood floating down a river stream. Just coming back to the breath. Just noticing how your body breathes you. So just settle in. Being aware of the inward and outward passage of air as your body breathes you effortlessly. Now, so just being aware of that breath. Staying with the breath. And just noticing now the support of the seat beneath you, the support of the ground beneath your feet. Now, so just being aware of any experiences, inner or outer, just like those pieces of wood floating down the river, allow them to pass by. No need to grasp. No need to hold on. Just the breath. Awareness of our breathing together. And as we breathe together, perhaps you can notice any thought streams, words, perhaps noticing any of those repetitive thoughts that we might have to live with each day, that we entertain. Greet them as a guest at the door. Just as a guest. You don't have to hold on to them. And being aware that those thoughts, they are experiences that come and go with each and every second. They never dwell. Sure, some might cycle around and knock on the door again. Allow them to pass. Noticing any repetitive thoughts, any words that pop into awareness. If they hold on to you, come back to your breath. It's your body as your friend. Has great wisdom. Come back to it. That's it. Just come back to the breath. And again, we can notice any thoughts, words. There may even be images and physical sensations with those words, thoughts. Acknowledge them. Allow them to pass. And just coming back to our breath. Coming back to our breath. Coming back to our breath. Back to our breath. In a few moments, I'm going to ask them to count to 3, and on 3, we'll come back together. 1, 2, 3. Open our eyes.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, so we've created that container of grief. If that's what's coming up right now, let it into the container, let the container hold it. Let it flow, just like the river is carrying the logs and the wood and the driftwood and whatever's drifting by. Come back to the breath and let go of that grief into into this container that we've created, this river that flows, that we can all hold together.
There's no shame.
No shame.
There's no shame in this.
I don't know if anybody noticed in our guidelines, one of them was we're not going to apologize for having feelings in this group. Feelings are part of who we are. Now we're going to get into our material for this week. All right, so let's start off with a quote. We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. Maya Angelou. So last week we started talking about stress prevention is more like stress management, pouring water out, pouring stress out, and different ways of doing that. And we're into our second week. And this week we're going to concentrate on how to pour stress out through the mental body. Using the psychological function, we would look at the point thought. So if you haven't yet, get out your journal and get to your page that says something along the lines of things that release stress. And this week, as you add to your list, try to focus on things that help you to release stress through your mental body. And you may add the things that we're going to talk about today. These are the things we're going to talk about today that are highlighted. As we go along, you might find that there's something here that you already do and you want to add it to your list, or something new that you want to add to your list. So if we were to use the psychological functions, or the one of thought, to figure out who we are and where we're at, we would say, what am I thinking? I'm going to pick that point and I'm just going to go with that. What am I thinking? How can I clarify my thoughts? How can I calm my mind? How can I think more positively? These are questions we might ask ourselves. And one of the ways that I find helpful is journaling. So right now I'm going to ask you to maybe start another journal page and call it free flow or something like that. And I'm going to time us, and I'm just going to ask you to write anything that comes through your mind. And if you get stuck, you could use these prompts. You could write, my pen is on the paper, or I can't think of what to write, or I'm thinking of, or I'm stuck on. And I'll time us. We'll have about 4 minutes. Another way that I like to move stress out of my mind is talk with a friend. Talk with a friend who's a good listener, who you can trust to listen, to not take on my stuff, but just hold the container so I can talk and give me some feedback that they hear me and that they give me a validation that what I'm saying is worth hearing. And then we take turns. And so we're going to do that right now. We're going to talk with a friend. So we're going to go into our breakout rooms again with different people. And please use the format. Start with thank you, whoever, for sharing. My name is, I'm zooming in from. And then you could write, in my journal I wrote about, or you could just say right now, where it got me to is right now what's on my mind is. So now we get into my favorite part, mindfulness and meditation. So, in studying about mindfulness and meditation, I kind of found 4 different ways that these activities change our brain. So our brain is made up of a frontal lobe, which is the executive functioning, the part that thinks clearly through things and critical thinking, has the ability to judge things if it seems like something that we want to follow through on or not. We have the ability to problem solve, things like that. And then the brainstem is more our reactions, our emotions, things that we don't necessarily control. And what the studies were showing that I found most interesting is that when we do certain activities in mindfulness and meditation, we're creating or bringing out new brain cells that weren't active before or didn't exist before. Not quite sure which is which. But that these brain cells allow us to do things that we wouldn't normally be able to do. So one of those things is practicing mindfulness 10 to 15 minutes a day for 8 weeks can change the brain from its natural tendency toward reactivity to making more sound decisions when experiencing difficult situations or emotions. And being mindful just means being in this present moment. So an example is, if I have a choice to eat my breakfast while I'm doing something else or just eat my breakfast, if I choose to spend 10 to 15 minutes just eating my breakfast, that's making a choice to practice mindfulness for that day. It takes 18 minutes of sitting in meditation practice for the brain to let down into quiet mind. I find this extremely interesting because a lot of people are like, I'm meditating, why isn't my mind quiet? Why does it take so freaking long to get my mind to quiet down? Well, the reason is because it's natural for the mind to wander. It's natural for the mind to be in an unrestful state. That's part of our survival mode. The brain wants us to survive, and so it's thinking. And it takes 18 minutes of focused sitting, not focused all the time, but just saying I'm going to sit and allow my brain to do its thing. And eventually it will come into what's called quiet mind. Spending time observing the brain going out of focus and bringing it back into focus strengthens the focus muscle. So when we go out of focus and we say, just went out of focus, it's not a bad thing. It's an opportunity to do our brain exercise to strengthen the focus muscle. It's what we do. We go out of focus. So this is like going to the gym, the brain gym. Oops. Sitting still while different thoughts, images, and feelings arise increases self-control, self-acceptance, resilience, and a sense of wholeness. So I don't know about you all, but I know that one of my ways of one of my addictive behaviors is if I have a difficult emotion, all of a sudden I find myself like popping nuts, or God forbid, if I have like chocolate covered ginger, popping something like that, popping something into my mouth, where if I could get myself to just, every time I get myself to just sit down and let myself feel my feelings and let them come and go and rise and fall, I will get to the other side. And because I took the time to do that, I'm like a better person for it. I have more self-control. I accept myself better when I'm done. I know that I can get through difficult emotions. Under my resilience, I know I can do it. And I have a better sense of my whole because I've just experienced different parts of myself that I may not have allowed to come up and be seen and heard. So John Kabat-Zinn brought, hello puppy, brought mindfulness to the awareness of those of us here in the Western Hemisphere, especially in the United States of America. And his definition, there are different definitions for mindfulness, but his I really like is mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And then sometimes he adds this in the service of self-understanding and wisdom. So again, my favorite practice with mindfulness is just choose to do one thing at a time. So examples of what you could be mindful doing is brushing your teeth, paying attention to the toothbrush on your teeth and your gums and the movement of your arm as you're moving from one place to another, and the taste and the smell and how it's working in the mouth. Showering is a wonderful way to be mindful. I know that sometimes I have shower thoughts, those brilliant thoughts where you just let your mind go, and then bring yourself back to how it feels to have water on your skin, how it feels to lather your skin and your hair, the smell of the shampoo and the soap if you use those, etc. Preparing food. If you're using a sharp knife, you have to be mindful. Enjoying the texture and the smell and the visual appeal of the food that we're preparing is a great joy. It's a great thing to be mindful about. And then I also put in eating and body awareness, and put in a slide where you can come back and hover over the little speaker and you'll see that you can start this. So here's the raisin exercise. If you like raisins, it's a 5.5-minute video where you use one raisin to really become present and eat in a very, very mindful way. And you don't have to use a raisin. If you don't like raisins, you can use something else. And this body scan is 15.5 minutes. And it's a really wonderful guide through the body that just pulls us into the present moment, here with the body. I am here, my body is here, and we are connected. So I'm reading a book. I'm reading from a book. Both of these are me reading. I'm reading from a book, and it's Jon Kabat-Zinn's words. So I hope you like my voice and Jon Kabat-Zinn's words. All right. So there are different kinds of meditation. Meditation is a mindful practice. Mindfulness is not meditation, but meditation is a mindfulness practice. And these are just like a very few names of things that people call meditation. Concentration meditation being kind of at the center. And I want to kind of move right into moving forms of meditation and talk about this. Thich Nhat Hanh has this beautiful 4.5-minute video of him talking about how he works with children, teaching them walking meditation. And I hope that you'll be able to open this and try this out and just watch it and then try it out when you go walking. I also put in a routine that I like to do that you can try. And even if you do this routine for 4 steps and try that every time you go walking, try pulling it in for 4 steps of connecting to the earth and talking to the earth and loving your connection with the earth, loving the earth through your feet and through your walk. It's a beautiful practice. And right now we're going to do a little sound meditation. So some of you have seen my little speakers. It's a toning system. And I'm going to set them up so that they're near the speaker of my computer. And I'm just going to play them for 3 minutes. So just sit for 3 minutes and listen. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope you were gentle with anything that happened inside. You know, our mind is meant to wander. So hopefully if it went out and came back and did that ebb and flow, I'm hoping that you were gentle with yourself and allowed for that without any judgment. So we're going to try another kind of meditation. Some of you may have seen this, and it may come out loud on your computer, but I'm going to let you figure out if you need to sit back farther or turn your volume down. I'm going to leave the volume as it is on mine. I'm going to actually turn it up a tad to make sure that it comes through well for you.
Since you're watching this video, I'll bet you want to meditate but don't have time. Maybe you've tried to meditate but had some trouble. Maybe you had a wonderful experience meditating over there, but just can't find that same feeling over here. Well, my name is Marty Borison, and in this video I'm going to introduce you to the technique of one-moment meditation. Then you can meditate whenever you need to. Like when you're feeling stressed, or feeling angry. Maybe you're having trouble sleeping, or you're feeling anxious, or you just need a new idea. Although one-moment meditation is ultimately about meditating in a moment, we're going to start with a minute. We start with a minute because a moment goes by so quickly that it's very hard to notice. But a minute is like a moment with handles on it. You know where it begins and where it ends, so it's easier to grasp. If you're ready, we'll do the basic minute now. You might want to shut the door, or at least tell people you're not available for the next minute. You don't have to tie yourself in knots for this. Just sit with your legs planted firmly on the floor. Try to sit up straight, but don't be rigid. It's as if your head were being lifted up away from the weight of the world. Think of it as cosmic traction. Now put your hands in any position that's balanced, symmetrical, and still. Like this, or like this. During the minute, simply focus on your breathing, moment by moment. Of course, even in the space of a minute, you will get distracted. That's perfectly normal. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. But as soon as you notice that you're distracted, just think, and bring your mind back to your breathing. I'll ring a bell so you know when to start and when to finish. Ready? Then close your eyes. Oh, one more thing. It's okay to smile. And go. As you open your eyes, notice how you feel right now. Maybe a little bit refreshed, a little bit more awake, a little bit more open-minded. Not bad for a minute. And the more you do it, the better it gets. But please don't ever do the basic minute for longer than a minute. Don't be macho about it. Because the point of the basic minute is to show you that you can make a meaningful change in your state of mind quickly. So if you do it for longer, you're cheating. With one-moment meditation, you can also learn how to do the portable minute, which is very useful when you're standing in line, on a train, or stuck in a boring meeting. You can also learn the bonus minute, the surprise minute, and the emergency minute. With one-moment meditation, you can also learn how to reduce the length of the basic minute step by step until it only takes a moment. And when you can meditate in a moment, your whole day can be filled with meditation because it takes no time at all.
So I'm not going to play the next two slides, but I just want you to know that they're on here, and you can come back and watch this, do this 10-minute guided meditation with Jon Kabat-Zinn. And you can come back and do a longer meditation with me. It's got 20 minutes of silence in the middle of a guiding in and a guiding out. So it's about 43 minutes long altogether. And I was going to have us go in and go into our breakout rooms and talk about what is your meditation style and practice if you have one. But I'm wanting to make sure we have time for the last few slides. So just maybe jot down in your journal, what is your meditation style or practice? And when you meet with your partner this week, maybe you can talk about that a little more. So I'm going to bring us into a different way of thinking about how to get stress out through the mind, through something called reframe. And a lot of people probably know how to do this or do this without realizing what they're doing. So if I have a mindset, if I think a certain way, and I want to, and it's not really working well for me, and I want to reset my mindset, I have to figure out a different way of switching things up, of thinking differently. So for example, you all know that I think that life will continue to present stressful situations. And another way that I could maybe move forward is create a mantra in my mind toward where I want to go, which is, I am the only one who can regulate my experience as a human being. Okay, that's an example. So there's this ABCD method, the cognitive behavioral therapy tool of the day. You know, Mercury is in retrograde, if anybody didn't know that. All forms of technology and communication are on the down and out right now, so it doesn't surprise me. All right, so the ABCD method. So some of you may have heard my example. My example is of how to describe this is when I'm on the highway and I'm in my car driving and someone is tailgating. The activating event is someone is tailgating. The belief is that they are going to hit me and I'm going to get hurt. The consequence is I get tense and I'm not enjoying the moment. I am scared, I am sweating, I'm in survival mode. Definitely not enjoying the drive. So my dispute, something that I could come up with, a way of changing the way I think that might be helpful. I've come up with a few. One is, I used to have a car with a lot of bumper stickers on the back. So if I said to myself, well, they're just getting up close because they want to read my bumper sticker. And it made me feel really joyful that they wanted to read my bumper sticker. You know, hey, cool. And I'd kind of give a thumbs up in my rearview mirror and wave, and I'd feel kind of joyful, and it would change my whole mood. Or I think to myself, this person just wants to pass me. They definitely want to go faster than I'm going. And they're waiting for a safe spot to pass me. And they have their own style of doing this. And they know what they're doing. They are in control. They're not going to hit me. And then I relax. I'm like, okay. Or the worst case scenario that I've come up with when I'm driving and someone's tailgating is I say to myself, maybe they are not thinking and they're not present and they are going to hit me. And if I'm tense, I'm going to get more hurt than if I could relax and the impact could go through me, kind of like a contact improv dance. And then I'm not tense and usually I don't get hit. I have been hit before, so I came upon this fear honestly. But it does help me to change my mind so that I can enjoy the drive. So again, for the sake of time, I'm going to ask you to do this as a homework assignment or a between group support assignment is what I would prefer to call it. So I want you to journal. Pick another page in your journal and maybe title it ABCD method, and choose your activating event, belief, consequence, and then maybe 1 or 2 or 3 disputes that you can get from that. And we're not going to go into our breakout rooms. I'm going to let you maybe have some time with your partner this week to talk about your activity, your journaling. And maybe when you're talking about how does disputing your belief change the consequence, also, how does it feel in your body? How does it feel before and after this dispute? Tune into that. So another way to change our mind is through something that those of us who study it, it's called psychosynthesis. And Richard, do you want to talk some about psychosynthesis?
Sure. I mean, yeah. So psychosynthesis, folks, it's a depth psychology, a framework of, I guess, self-development and self-understanding that was founded by an Italian MD and apparently beautiful gentleman called Roberto Saggioli in the early 20th century. And he was a contemporary of Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud and all that gang, basically. And he was one of the unsung heroes of founding, I guess, psychotherapy. And so coming to actually the core model is actually this is one of 7 principles, I suppose, 7 core principles. What we call is the egg diagram. And so the egg diagram is it's a model for representing our psyche, our soul, our self. Now there might be confusing terms at first, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have offline once we're out of the call. So when it comes to your journaling and just general awareness and mindfulness practice, I'd suggest that maybe you could use the egg diagram as kind of like a framework to hang your thoughts, your inner experiences, your emotions, your physical sensations, your imaginings off. And so just to briefly walk you through this, if you see that dotted circle with the point in the center, so as a useful example, that's our field of awareness. So when we were doing our mindfulness exercise, and say at the start of the session, and I was bringing your attention back to your breath. So if you imagine that point in the center is your awareness, that's your point of concentration. So bringing you back to the breath. And yet other experiences may have been entering that circle of awareness. You might have been aware of sounds outside, sounds in your house, sensations in your body, thoughts passing in and out of awareness. So that circle of awareness, that's quite a mystery, and it's also your core strength, if you will. That's what we're trying to develop when it comes to mindfulness. Now, when it comes to the middle unconscious, think of that as, say, your easy go-to learned habits, unconscious patterns. That might be something as simple as like reaching for your cup of coffee in the morning, being able to write a letter, walking. These are like immediately available assets or resources within your unconscious. Now, when we go down the egg into the lower unconscious, the lower unconscious is that part of ourselves, of our soul, our self, that's basically where our past is. Our past could include our traumas, any limiting beliefs that we might hold about ourselves, which brings us into the previous exercise with CBT, with the ABCD exercise. And so when it comes to accessing powerful emotions, the lower unconscious can often be the place to go when it comes to working with grief and dealing with loss. Now, moving up to the higher unconscious, think of the higher unconscious as say, the holding area for our highest potentials and ideals. Yeah, it's where we might argue the better angels of our nature stem from. It's just worth doing your own research, but I'm happy to help you out on that. And so, when it comes to moving outside of the egg, let's just draw our attention to 2 points on the at the top and the bottom. At the bottom, we have what we might call the dark night of the soul, and so these can include aspects of ourselves, emotions that we've tended to push down out of awareness. That's where they collect, and those intense feelings and experiences can come in, push their way up into the middle unconscious and intrude into the field of awareness. Now, likewise, if we look towards the top of the egg diagram, we have the higher self. So this might be the source of inspirations, particular dreams, dream characters that we might consistently encounter when we end up waking up. And so these two sources are like well springs that we can draw upon if we'll learn to develop resilience of that field of conscious awareness. Yeah. Now, when it comes to outside of that, outside of the egg diagram, that's essentially the collective. Now, we can call it the collective conscious. It can also go by the term collective unconscious, and so that's the space that we share with everybody else. Amit, to move on to subpersonalities.
Just thinking that because it's 11 o'clock right now,
Mm-hmm.
can you wrap that up?
Wrap up the egg diagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's basically it, folks. I mean, with the in essence, think of the egg as representing you, your total consciousness. Anything out of that, anything out of the egg is in the collective, and that's really what we share. Yeah, it's the collective consciousness that we share, which we're essentially sharing that right now, being aware of each other, aware of each other's opinions when we speak, and so on.
Thank you, Richard. So I wanted to bring your attention to this subpersonality work in psychosynthesis. We're not going to talk too much about it, but I am going to send you these papers that you can't see. I'm going to send those to you as attachments this week. And you can look through those and decide if you want to try working with subpersonalities and talk with your partner about that. Okay? So also in psychosynthesis, there's this concept of both and. And some of you have heard this before. So for an example, we're all having a response to COVID, not only COVID-19 virus, but the pandemic. We're having a response to both of these things. And although it's true that people are getting sick, people are dying, people are losing their jobs, people's way of life is changed, and it's stressful, and it's upsetting, and it's painful, and it's grief creating. All that is true. There's also another side of this, right? So at the beginning, in March, when the pandemic started in my area of the world, people were calling it the Great Pause. People were spending more time indoors or with their families or out in nature walking, less time in their car, less time putting things into the air, and the air it felt cleaner. People were talking about that. Wow, it seems like there's less pollution. It's really beautiful. Loving it. So there was this great pause. We slowed down, right? Now that we're having a long-term pandemic, and we don't know when it's going to be done, some people have started calling it the Great Turning, that it's an opportunity for healing and awakening, for paying more attention to our self-care, like we're doing right now, our care for each other, care for the planet, self-love, self-realization. So while one thing is true about COVID-19 virus and the pandemic, there's another thing that's also true. And both of them together, if we hold both of them as truth, it'll expand our ability to hold the pandemic and to hold the stress that's related to it. So normally, right now, I would want to play us this beautiful song. It's about 3 minutes long. I don't think I want to take the time to do it today, but when you get your slide, and hopefully we'll figure out how everybody can open their slides, I really suggest that you play this and you sing along as loud and as long as you can. The words are right next to it, so when you get this, you just press it on and go for it. And I want to talk a little about forgiveness, compassion, and gratitude. So this week, inviting everybody, all of us, to do a forgiving exercise. Forgiveness exercise 1 is best done out in nature, and even best by water if you have that opportunity. If not, it's fine. Maybe open a window in your home and get some fresh air while you do this. And you can either say or journal, help me to forgive myself. And then see what comes up. Do a little meditation in there. And then, please forgive me. See what comes up. And help me to feel forgiven. The second forgiving exercise is something that you do best. It's best done while walking by yourself. And just use this mantra, I forgive myself for, and see what comes up. And then at some point you may start the mantra, I forgive you for, and see what comes up. And it may naturally go back and forth. I forgive myself for, I forgive you for. I forgive myself for, I forgive you for. And now we're going to talk about love. Jonas, can you take this one? Hopefully you're able to.
Yes. So one thing that is really important when we're talking about love is, what do we mean when we say love? The word, at least in the English-speaking language, that we translate and refer to as love, in other cultures, in other times, in other traditions, have many different meanings. And I have 8 definitions of love that all sound the same. We call it love, but it feels different. And I'm going to share in the chat box in a moment an article that you can really dive into each of these definitions at some point. Or actually, I don't know if I can do that directly to all of you, but I'll send it to all of you. So the first one is storge. In this kind of love is a fondness among the people in a long-term relationships, whether it's friends, a spouse, children, pets, colleagues. Another one is philia. This is a love among equals, whether it's friends, members of a community, people who love the same sports team. There's pragmatic love. This is convenient love. This is where both partners get something out of the love. The next one is ludus. This is a love that you share with people that you enjoy doing fun activities with. it's more of a game. It's, whether it's indoor, outdoor activities or just enjoying being together. Another one is mania. This is somewhat more obsessive. This is where the experience of love itself is the desire. Another one is eros. This is the one where we think of like Valentine's Day, romantic love. Another one, my personal favorite, agape. This is an unconditional, no strings attached love. You just love someone just because they are who they are. And then the last one I'll share is, and I'm going to probably mispronounce this, philautia, which is a self-love. And this can be both a positive or a negative. It can be expressed negatively as vanity or egoism, or positively as self-acceptance and happiness for who you are. So in this exercise that we're going to talk about love, it's important to identify, because there's a lot of, for many folks, when we think about love, people sometimes have a hesitancy to say I love you, even if it's just quietly and to yourself towards another person, because there's some hookup about what love means. But by looking at these 8 different types of love, it can be perhaps more accessible for us to be able to say to someone, I love you, because we know what we mean when we say I love you. So it's this idea of precision of language. So Ami, you have this exercise you're going to share with us?
Yeah, so I invite people to try out this exercise during the week, this compassion exercise. You could silently or out loud, depending on the safety that you feel, say, I love you, to not only all that you see, but everything that you see. You could say, I love you to a tree. You could say, I love you to a dog or a cat. You could say, I love you to the street light. You could say, I love you to different things and try it out and see how that is. And then take a moment to connect your mind and your heart as you do this and feel into the intention of what the words are for you. And I love what Jonas is saying, that we can unhitch some of the bad crap that we've carried, our luggage that we have because of broken hearts and unrequited love and things like that. So we can break through that and just come up with the love that you can find for that moment, for that person, for that thing. And practice this every day for a week. You might practice it for a couple of minutes. You might practice it for a whole drive or a whole walk or a whole trip. And I would suggest that you continue this practice once a week. And you might want to choose a day. Every Monday at 2:00, I'm going to do my compassion exercise for however long. And then the last thing that I'm going to ask people to do this week is to start a gratitude journal. Set your timer for 5 minutes. Create a list and start with I am grateful for, and just keep going until your timer goes off. Do this daily for a week. And then again, you can continue this practice, maybe choose a day once a week. So today we talked about moving stress out through the mental body. We talked about these things on my list. You may have them on your list. You may have other things on your list too. And just a reminder, we have things from last week that are on our list that we'll continue to do. And we also want to make sure to put on our list and practice rest, just be, and grieve. Especially when we do things on our list and we get stressed up and out, and then what's left is grief. We want to allow ourselves that sacred place to put grief, to allow grief. So you can check your list, see what's on your list throughout the day and try things. And we've run out of time. So I'm just going to have you in your journal when we're done write, what am I going to do to release stress today? And we're going to end with a little love. I'm going to send an email and let you know who your partners were, because we actually already figured all that out this week. So as soon as we're done with this, and Richard and Jonas and I are going to have a moment together until the half hour. And then right after that, I'll send you all an email with the list of who you're going to be teaming up with. Okay. So right now we're going to all unmute. I'm going to stop our share. We're going to unmute and have an absolute chaotic love fest. Say every loving thing that you want to each other. Ah,
All
love you,
right, thank
Allie,
you
so much.
Rich,
Love
for
you,
So
Remy,
much fun
talking
so
sharing
much.
about
today.
Thank
recovery
Love
you.
you,
and
Love you
Nancy,
all.
so much.
Nancy,
listening.
I hope we
Beautiful souls.
sing
Love you,
today and
Kathy,
dance today.
so
Mommy,
much.
thank
So
you.
much for the
Jonas,
loving
great
and
to
Love you,
talk to you
Jonas,
today. It
today.
was
Kathy
really
Lee.
fun.
Joy,
Rich,
We do
thank
See you,
you
yesterday.
so
love
Sandra.
you,
much.
And
Rich,
know that you are loved.
forward to
so
Feeling
seeing
Jonas,
you
I
again.
look forward
That
to
Rich,
working
means
with
I
you
am the
later.
butterfly. Thank you so much for that. Really
Most
love
welcome.
you sometime.
all right.
Hi, Remy. See you soon.